All I wanted was a game 7 that was close. I think I got that.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Wow. And welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. And yes, we're going to be doing it all throughout the offseason as well. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. I'm your host, but please, by all means, you must call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube page. And if you leave a comment, make sure to leave that hashtag #EverydaySully so we know that you are listening to us. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And let's just get one last bit of business done. The trivia question, which was what 1980 slugger hit 2 World Series home runs on his birthday? And Argonaut Comedy was an Everyday Sully. Got it right. Willie Mays Aikens hit 2 home runs on his birthday in the 1980 World Series. He was a slugger for the Kansas City Royals. Willie Mays Aikens hit more home runs in the World Series than Willie Mays. Willie Mays Hayes from Major League hit as many World Series home runs as Willie Mays. Little known fact. But there you go. Wow. This game was a good game until the 9th. Then it became a mind-boggling game. Then it became one of those games that we're just going to talk about and dissect. And I'm going to do my best, but I mean, I feel like this is going to take a little bit of distance to get a hold of it. How crazy was today's game? Well, let me put it this way. There were several moments where the Blue Jays were literally a swing away from winning the World Series. And as they mentioned on the broadcast, the Dodgers were on the verge of winning the World Series at the same time as the Blue Jays. That has happened a couple of times. Most recently in the 2014 World Series and the 2016 World Series, there was a moment where both teams could have won the World Series with a pitch. When a runner was on third, the tying run was on third, and Salvador Perez was at the plate, and Madison Bumgarner, who was the Yamamoto character of that particular World Series, if he let up a home run to Perez, the Royals would have won. He got Perez to pop out. The Giants won. And Michael Martinez came up with a tying run on, representing the winning run in the bottom of the 10th inning of the 2016 World Series. If Martinez hit a home run, Cleveland would have won the World Series. He didn't. He grounded out. The Cubs won the World Series. There's a precedent for this, but I don't think we've seen a precedent of the series just being so banana boats. The closest I can come to is Game 7 of the World Series in 1991, which was the greatest World Series I had ever seen. And I still think it is, but this is earning its way up there. How crazy was this World Series? I'll tell you how crazy this World Series was. We had an 18-inning marathon last week. Remember that? 18 innings where both teams played their guts out. Both teams left it all out on the field. 18 innings. And that gets the silver medal for most intense game of this World Series. Where people are asking, was that the greatest World Series game ever played? That wasn't the best World Series game played this week. We just saw it. We just saw something. And let me tell you, some people have written to me already saying, as it's your Dodgers. I'm not a Dodger fan. By the end, when it was clear that both teams were leaving everything out on the field, I was pulling for Toronto, not because I think the Dodgers are destroying baseball. I don't. Mainly because I want to see Don Mattingly win. I thought that'd be cool. and I've grown such a shine to Vladdy Jr. And I think it would have been a generational moment for Toronto Blue Jay fans. I love generational moments. But a generational moment happened because we saw a repeat World Series champion. That hasn't happened since 2000. Using the rule of seven, if you are a 32-year-old baseball fan, you've never seen back-to-back titles. Remember that when people say it's the same team winning every year. But this is a series that had so many ups and so many downs, and a game that had so many weird plot twists in it. So many heroes who you thought, okay, we're not expecting this person to come through. Oh my God, this person came through. And I made the comment in the podcast that dropped today that someone was going to wake up and not know they were going to be the great hero of a World Series game. Do you think Miguel Rojas knew when he woke up this morning that he was going to etch himself into World Series lore? Do you think Yamamoto knew that? That a day after pitching, he was going to come in and put himself in an impossible situation, in an absolutely impossible situation in the ninth, and then put himself in a situation in the 10th inning and be constantly throwing the ball with the World Series on the line? Do you think that was going to happen? Do you think that Jeff Hoffman woke up today knowing that he was going to be so close to having the ultimate highlight and having it slip away? Or that Shane Bieber would be on the verge of wiggling out of trouble only to put themselves behind the eight ball? And Alejandro Kirk, who twice came up with a chance to win the World Series and once got hit by a pitch, and the next time did the one thing he couldn't do, which was ground out. This was a Dostoevsky novel. This was a season of The Wire. For those of us who love the show The Wire, it was so complicated. And you had to kind of rewatch some episodes. And like, oh, this happened because of that. Oh, yeah, that character was actually in season 3. That's what it felt like. And when it comes down to it, we have to take a look at just how close this team got to winning the World Series. I've never seen a team this close to getting to the World Series. And in back-to-back plays, it was not about pitching. It was not about hitting. It was not about analytics. It wasn't about anything like that. It was simply about physics. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Everything you love about following the NBA and getting into those games, especially those regular season games, you want to make it more exciting. Guess what? Even if you miss the start of a game, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel is the place to bring on the good stuff. They have live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. And plus, you can combine your live bets with the same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making a late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up to play your game with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. I keep thinking about that ninth inning. Well, everything was going crazy in that top of the ninth inning when Kiki Hernandez struck out and Jeff Hoffman was just in control. And he got the full count to Rojas, who's in there for his glove. And his job is to get on base to make sure Shohei Otani is there to hit one out. And when Rojas hit that home run, again, it was already a really good game. But when they got out of that inning after Yasevich, I thought, why are they taking him out? But you know what? I'm not going to, they got the outs out of Yasevich. He got the grounder off Teoscar Hernandez, and Hoffman got Edmund to ground out. Okay, fine. They couldn't get that. They couldn't push that insurance run across the board. They got the leadoff double by Clement, and then Snell somehow got out of that inning, and then the home run by Rojas. And I just was stunned. There were a lot of scenarios I saw in my head, but Rojas hitting that home run was unbelievable. And it's amazing, the two big home runs in the 9th and in the 11th were sandwiched around an Otani at bat. When you think about it, all the thoughts were just, you can't walk Rojas and give Shohei Otani a shot. You can't give. And so Hoffman throws a pumpkin up there wondering, oh, what's the worst that Rojas is going to do? And he deposits his first home run in like a month and a half. He hits a game-tying home run in the 9th inning with his team 2 outs away from losing the World Series. And he gets Otani to fly out. And then in the 11th inning with Bieber up there, gets Rojas to ground out, and then gets Otani to ground out on a broken bat on the first pitch. And it was like, hey, look, at that point, Shane Bieber only threw 3 pitches and then was going to face Will Smith. And if he gets past Will Smith, then, he's probably ready to go for the 12th if need be. Then he lets up the Will Smith home run. So, Otani, the threat of Otani was basically connected to those 2 big home runs. But I digress. We get to the 9th. I want Ken Burns to do a whole episode on that 9th. Snell, was throwing all over creation with Vladimir Guerrero up and a 3-0 count. Now, he took a shot at it. He hit the ball to deep center field on a 3-0 count because he knew Snell was going to lay one right in there. And Vladimir Guerrero said, what if I hit the home run, the walk-off home run, and lead the Blue Jays to victory? And he almost did. I thought he did when he got it off, when he hit it. And afterwards, it's like, it was a 3-0 count. You could have walked. You could have gotten on base. Not going to blame him because the rest of the inning was crazy boats. Bichette singles, which means Kiner Falefa comes in and pinch run. I know some people are probably going to kill Schneider for letting him, taking him out again, because that was one of the big problems in the 18-inning game, was a lot of his best hitters were taken out of the game for pinch running. But I get it. Barger walks, and you got the World Series run in scoring position. And in comes Yamamoto playing on fumes and hits Kirk. So now the bases are loaded with 1 out. And there's virtually not a scenario that the Blue Jays don't win that game. But that's why you play the game. And the 2 plays that Blue Jay fans are going to be replaying in their head as they were 1 swing away from winning that whole inning. Varsho grounds out to Rojas. And Rojas, by the way, became the big hero. He owned October, even though it was in November, because of his home run and also for fielding that ball and chucking it home and just barely getting Kiner Falefa. To the point when you saw the replay and Will Smith's toe comes off and then back on. If he didn't put his toe on the base, on home plate at that exact right moment, the Blue Jays win the World Series. If you saw Rojas kind of was falling back a little bit, he didn't field it perfectly cleanly. If he throws a tiny bit more up the line where Will Smith has to stretch a little bit for it, the Blue Jays win the World Series. It was not even about anything on the Blue Jays did. It was just if he didn't throw it to the exact right spot and the toe was on at the exact right moment. This whole podcast is all about the glory of the Toronto Blue Jays. And then remember, that was the same play they sent Andy Pages out to center field. Tommy Edmonds no longer in the game. Ernie Clement, who is a hitting machine, on the first pitch hits a deep drive to left center field. Now, I thought it was going to the gap. I absolutely thought that was a walk-off hit. And then you have Kike Hernandez and Andy Pages coming in. They jump up, and somehow Pages keeps the ball even though he collides with Kike Hernandez. If that ball pops out at the collision, or they see they're about to collide and he doesn't go all out for the ball to avoid the collision, the Blue Jays win the World Series. And I kept thinking, and A's fans turn away. I kept thinking about that wild card game between the Royals and the A's, where the A's were 2 outs away from winning that wild card game. And there was a deep fly ball, and Sam Fuld and Johnny Gomes of the A's both went and both jumped up for the ball at the same time and collided, and the ball came down and putting the tying run on. I kept thinking of that play. If Fuld or Gomes held on to that ball, the A's win that game. They have 2 outs and nobody on at that point, and they're going to win that game. And who knows how they would have done. That was a terrific A's team, or for most it was a terrific A's team. They had a great pitching staff. Anyway, I digress. I was thinking about through that. In that moment, the two jumped up, they collided, the ball came out, it became a devastating moment for the A's. In this moment, they jump up, they bump into each other. Pages holds on to the ball. If that ball pops out, this is all about the Toronto Blue Jays. The throw is at the right spot. His toe was at the right spot. They collide, but the ball doesn't bounce out. That's what we're talking about here. That's everything we're talking about. And no one would have blamed Yamamoto. It was they were going for broke. And of course, you got to give the Blue Jays credit in the top of the 10th because the Dodgers loaded the bases then. Betts walked. Muncy got a single. Teoscar Hernandez walked. Pages grounds out to home, and then there's the wild play where it's a grounder, and Sir Anthony Dominguez barely gets his foot on the base with Kike Hernandez running up. If he didn't get his foot on the base at the exact moment, a winning run, the go-ahead would have come for Los Angeles in the top of the 10th. Physics. It's not about like they were 1 strike away, they were 1 hit away. No, they were 1 inch away, 1 moment of a collision away from winning the World Series. Which is why I think once we get a little bit of distance from this game, we are going to see that this was really just an all-time classic. It's tough for me to talk about any distance about it right now because I'm still wearing the same clothes that I'm wearing. I'm still I haven't showered since watching the game. This is what I wore while watching the game. I haven't been able to step back, and neither have you, unless you're watching this 5 years from now. Think about the great Game 7s I've seen. That I've personally have memory of seeing. The 79 World Series was a very good game, but I was 7. I didn't really have a sense of history at that point. There have been some dud Game 7s. The Game 7 between Minnesota and St. Louis was very good. The one between the Red Sox and the Mets was all Red Sox until the 6th, and then the Mets was all Mets for the second half. The 1991, where Jack Morris and John Smoltz locked antlers for a 1-0 extra inning game, was one of the great games I've ever seen. The Marlins deflating victory over the Cleveland Indians in 97. The Diamondbacks victory over the Yankees was another all-time great. The one between the Giants and the Angels was a little bit anticlimactic after the great one in the great game 6 of that series. And then, I mean, you have like the aforementioned ones, the one between the Rangers and the Cardinals. When the Cardinals won, that was an anticlimax after the Game 6 Classic. The one where the Giants won in 2014 was a all-time great game. The one between the Cubs and the Cleveland Indians, again, that was an all-time great game with the rain delay and everything. The one with the Astros and the Dodgers has a little bit of a taint on that, mainly because of what happened in Houston. And then, of course, I think the one between the Astros and the Nationals in uh, 2019, I think was really underrated. The only ones right now, we have to have a little bit of distance. What I was thinking, but the only ones right now, the Marlins, Cleveland, the Diamondbacks, Yankees. You have the Cubs, Cleveland. This is probably ahead of the Giants and the A's. So this is definitely top 4. Definitely top 4. Where it fits in that top 4, I'm going to have to give it a little bit, because right now, this is kind of like when you see a great movie and you think that should win every Academy Award, and you kind of need to give it a little bit of distance. But I can see this being contending for the top spot. I can't imagine, if I were a Dodger fan or a Blue Jay fan, how intense this must have felt, because I was just watching it as you know, as a borderline impartial observer. But I can tell you, as someone who has seen their team lose gut punch games, Blue Jay fans, this is going to take a while to get over. All right, let's hear from our good friends over at Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in a stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between the long lines, the login screens, the price jumping up at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives advantage back to the fans. Game Times is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the right price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Now, if you go into Game Time, you just take a couple of taps, you can see great deals, like seeing your favorite NFL teams for as low as $100. And the app makes it super simple. You can see, I've used it for baseball tickets. I use it for my Dodger playoff tickets, and I could see the exact view from my seat before buying. And you got the zone deals. If you like a specific section, say that 3 times fast. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, it's cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. Download Game Time. When should you do that? You should do that today. I've got a bunch of comments and things that people wrote, and I'm assuming I'm gonna get a bunch after this episode came around. There's 2 I want to just bring up. Nadine Papazian says the Jays should have won this in 5 games. And beyond today, where they were, obviously they were 2 outs away from winning, and all those time they were 1 swing away from winning. This is going to be gut wrenching. But where Nadine has a great point is 3 of their 4 losses. One was the 18-inning game, where I'm going to go out on a limb and say they had a chance to win that game. Then there was a game yesterday where you had the bonehead, you had the being picked off at second base in a situation where they were rallying. And then, of course, you have today. Those are 3 of the 4 games. You had the Yamamoto complete game in game 2. Nothing you can do about that. And then you had the 2 games where they were in control in Dodger Stadium. And then you had these 3 games. If you just take a look at the offense, it looks like it was a series where the Blue Jays were in complete control of the Dodgers. But this is gonna hurt. By the way, I'm going to bring this up because I got one of the single strangest commenters on the YouTube page. I'm even going to bring up everything, but where is it? Uh, Barber Cisco Barber Frankie 6354. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I have no idea what that handle means. My guy, what are you talking about? One swing away? That's not a thing. Specifically, you're trailing in a game. It's not a thing. Of course it is. Even Joe Davis was saying that in the broadcast. What the hell are you talking about? That one swing away is not a thing. If you're coming up there and if you're trailing, but the tying run is on board and you're one swing away from winning it, one home run, one double, were the Blue Jays one swing away today when they were losing in the bottom of the 11th inning, but Vladimir Guerrero was on second base and a bunch of hitters were coming up where a home run would have won it? The answer is yes. Were they one swing away in the ninth inning? The answer is yes. I just love that this person was so like adamant about this. That's not a thing. Of course it is. Here's the thing. When you're wrong, and this Barber Cisco Barber Frankie is wrong, don't be arrogant about it. Now, I've been wrong a lot. And maybe I've been a little arrogant, but sometimes wrong. But, you know, own it when you're called out. So I'm expecting a little, especially when you've heard Joe Davis using that same expression that I used. You're wrong when you're saying, "What are you talking about?" with all these question marks. Not sure why you decide to put your flag down on that one when you are factually incorrect. By the way, it's not a thing. It is a thing. And you know what? If no one else used that expression before I did, spoiler alert, people did um, then I'm declaring it a thing. I do who owns baseball and who owns October and who owns the World Series. They weren't a thing, and now I'm doing it. Ergo, they are a thing. And things like the summer score, which I keep track of all summer long, was that a thing? No, it was not a thing, but I did it. Ergo, a thing. If someone do thing, it be thing. These are my fans, ladies and gentlemen. But it's going to be a long time. This is a gut punch. And it's going to take a Blue Jays World Series championship to dust this off. When I do the suffering index, by the way, a thing I created, the suffering index is a thing. When I do the suffering index, this is going to be a huge clobberama for the Toronto Blue Jays. So many things were going to be wiped out. So many things, especially the World Series futility of Don Mattingly. He was going to finally get his World Series ring. And we were going to have, the people were saying the Dodgers are ruining baseball, which they're not. Spoiler alert. All that would have been wiped out. And here we are. You can't have a work stoppage. Look what we're doing here. Look at all this fun we're having. What are we, nuts? What are we, absolutely nuts? But for the Blue Jays to wipe this out, they have to win it all. It's just that simple. The Red Sox had all those years where all that agony, and when they won it, wiped the slate clean. Same thing with the Cubs. The great agony of 1969, the agony of 1984, the agony of 2003, the underrated agony of 2008, where they had the best record in the National League and then got unceremoniously swept. That got wiped away when they defeated Cleveland. Cleveland still trying to find a way to wipe away two extra inning Game 7 losses. This is the third extra inning Game 7 loss in the wild card era. And the first one did not involve Cleveland. Cleveland lost the previous two. Now we're going to add Toronto. There was a lot of agony being a San Francisco Giant fan and a Houston Astro fan. And eventually those were wiped clean. A lot of agony being a Texas Ranger fan, being one strike away from winning the World Series twice in one game. But that was wiped clean when they finally defeated the Arizona Diamondbacks. Eventually, the Blue Jays will win one. But until then, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is going to hang over this team until that happens. And now there's no more baseball. And I can't talk about that yet because that's too big a topic. This is such an amazing game that we witnessed that I'm going to have to continue to just sort of go over it in my head. And there are probably other plot points and plot twists that I missed in this absolutely phenomenal game in what's turned out to be a really, really good World Series. And one of which Yamamoto and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Shohei Otani, and Miguel Rojas, and Freddie Freeman, and so many other terrific players have made their own. I'm going to go over the final tally of who owned October and who owned the World Series. But spoiler alert, the player with the highest who owned October tally as a hitter was Vladdy Jr. With a pitcher, the highest total was Yamamoto. But Shohei Otani had the highest overall because he combined hitting and pitching. So yes, those are your three biggest stars. And other big stars, Teoscar Hernandez had big games. Alejandro Kirk had big games. George Springer had some big games. Mookie Betts had some big games. Freddie Freeman hit a big, huge home run. But we'll remember this as the October of which Shohei Otani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. claimed it as their own. Now, this is a trivia question. Who was the last National League pitcher to clinch back-to-back World Series? The last American League pitcher was obviously Mariano Rivera. But who was the last National League pitcher to clinch back-to-back World Series titles, to be the pitcher on the mound when they clinched? It didn't happen this year because Walker Buehler was on the mound when they clinched last year. Yet another instance of a starting pitcher clinching a World Series. Thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. Your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night, every game, every night until World Series champion is crowned, which it has been. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night and Locked On MLB on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Talking about an absolute classic, Game 7 of the 2025 World Series. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. They're turning the clock back, and I'm exhausted, and you can call me Sully.